Part 13. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bh Yaoye 11U. Chapter 123. 2 days later, Lu Juyu also brought the news to Su Qingyu. Read. Within a few days, almost everyone under the Guangning mansion knew that the rebels had invaded the capital and driven the emperor out of the Golden Palace. Everyone was shocked. The person who sat in the Golden Palace has always been a godlike existence, but now he was ousted by a rebel army composed of disaster victims. The common people have never seen the emperor and are naturally afraid of imperial power. Usually when I see a yamen officer, I am so frightened that I dare not raise my head. I don't understand or care about political affairs. They are willing to listen to whoever tells them to eat. But in the past few months, the authorities have collected a bunch of miscellaneous taxes, which have hollowed out many people's homes and left them too poor to put food on the table. I dare not express my anger towards the person above and the official. Now they heard that people like them had ousted the emperor, which suddenly subverted their imagination. The streets were full of people whispering to each other. Some ruffians suddenly started to tremble. Together with some lazy people and some homeless people in the town, they quickly formed a team, destroying, smashing and looting in Fengting town every day. Every merchant is patronized by them. Some large businesses are visited several times a day. Su Qing's shop was also invaded by a group of people, vandalized and looted. Fortunately, her daily flow was just scattered copper plates and a little broken silver, so the other party didn't think much of it. Those people who want to make a fortune once they turn over all want to be big, and they all focus on big merchants. Gold and silver jewelry shops, cloth shops, ready-made clothing shops, embroidery shops, rice, grain, and oil shops, etc., are the most visited. Restaurants and bars are also places that these people often visit. When they go in, they ask for good food and drink from the store. A lot of oil was stolen from second Aunt Sue's oil shop. She cried and ran to the ground to grab it. She was pushed and fell to the ground and was trampled on. If her second uncle and others hadn't pulled her away quickly, her hands and feet would have been injured. People stepped on it. There was chaos in Fengting town. Shops are closing one after another. All residents are also staying behind closed doors. But this group of people not only harassed the residents during the day, but also knocked on the doors of each household at night. If the doors were not opened, they broke in, stole valuables, and ran away. Suddenly everyone in the town was in danger. One night, old man Xie brought his old servant and Xie Qi over and asked Su Qingyu if she wanted to go to Guangning mansion with him to take a break. Su Qingyu shook her head. She has a big family and it's not good to bother others. Before Xie Qi left, he exchanged gifts with Xiao Qingxing and Xiao Qingyang, and Xie Qi finally left reluctantly. Su Qingnao brought Granny Zhou and her family into the store. There was no man in her family who was able to establish a household, but there was a big tiger, a big ginger, and a servant in the store. Su Qingyu, on the other hand, stayed at home with her children, Su Qingliu, Su's father, and several farm servants, staying behind closed doors. After Lu Shenke was robbed of the grocery store, he packed up his things at home and asked Su Qingyu if he wanted to go to Pingchuan County with him for a while. It was the seat of the county government and had heavy gates, so it could withstand some resistance. Those people dare not make trouble easily. Su Qingyu refused. Lu Shenke had no choice but to hug his grandson and leave with Wu and Lu Bozong. A few days later, the head of Su Qingyu's village came over with 2 servants, saying that Zhuangzi had also been attacked by those people, and a lot of things in the village had been robbed. Su Qingyu asked them if the grain in the cellar was still there. Zhuangzi said it was still there. Su Qingyu felt relieved. The entrance to the cellar in Zhuangzi cannot be found by ordinary people. As long as the cover is good, ordinary people can't find the things in the cellar. Su Qingnao told them not to resist if there were many people on the other side, and they would just let them take away the things in the village. It was most important to protect their personal safety. Zhuangtu agreed. Before leaving, Suqingyu gave him a sum of money and asked him to distribute it to the servants, firstly to reassure them, and secondly to make up for their losses. Within a few days, the town became increasingly chaotic. All the shops are no longer open. Residents who can afford it have also fled to other places. One night, Suqingyu, along with Su's father, Sudahu, and others, unpacked the things in the cellar of the shop, and took the whole family, as well as her mother-in-law Zhou's family, to hide in Ziahe village, the home of Lu Bachan's maternal grandfather. It is close to the neighboring county and the place is remote, safer than Fengting town. Before leaving, he left a message for Lu Juyi. A group of people headed to the small mountain village at night. After walking for most of the night, we arrived at Ziahe village near dawn. The house of Lu Bachan's maternal grandfather in Ziahe village had been repossessed 2 months ago. The family rented the land and the house of Lu Bachan's maternal grandfather's family. They originally lived a decent life. Unexpectedly, the taxes became heavier and heavier. The family worked hard and had no food to eat, so they retired. I bought the house and farm rent and moved into the mountains. As a mountain dweller, you don't have to pay taxes. After everyone tidied up, they settled down. After settling in, Su's father took Suqingyu to visit the village chief. In the past, Su's father often came to help take care of the fields and houses left by his grandfather. The village chief and everyone in the village knew him. Later, Suqingyu collected fruits, vegetables, and poultry in the village, and everyone knew her. Knowing that she was the granddaughter-in-law of the old Lu family in the next village, he was quite friendly to her. Suqingyu walked around the village and explained the reason to the village chief and others. The village chief and others couldn't help but sigh after hearing this. They all told her to live in the village with peace of mind and that everyone would take care of each other if anything happened. Suqingyu thanked the village chief and others. In the afternoon, Suqingyu carried some things and went to Shanghe village next door with Su's father and Lu Xiaobao in his arms. The old Lu family welcomed her arrival very much. The old couple hugged Lu Xiaobao and refused to let go. Lu Xiaobao has been staying in the town since he was born and has never been to the village. He only slept soundly and looked around without blinking. Very curious. He could spend a long time looking at the chickens, ducks, geese, puppies, and small animals in the village, even the caterpillars on the leaves. Eyes full of surprise. Then he saw Luwaji, who was about the same age as him, and the two brothers were sitting together babbling and talking in incomprehensible baby talk. When Laolutu heard Suqingyu talk about the things in the town, he was very scared. He patted his chest and said, "It's better to live in the countryside. We don't have such things in the countryside. Just live in the village with peace of mind. The village is full of people and they don't dare to come. It's not that I don't dare to come. Maybe they think that since everyone is poor, they are just fighting against the government and wealthy people. The poor people have nothing to gain. Secondly, because everyone has the same status, it may not be easy to attack." Suqingyu had dinner at Laolu's house before returning to Ziahe village. After Su's father sent them here, he returned to Kyoto village the next day. He is worried about his family. Kyoto village is close to Fengting town, and I don't know if anything happened to my family. Suqingyu settled down in Ziahe village. Uncle Lu, and others often bring food over. Laolutu and his wife would come to see their great-grandson every day, and Mrs. Huang also came to play with Xiaobao with Luwaji in her arms. The two villages are right next to each other, and it only takes a quarter of an hour to walk from the next village. He also moves around a lot. More than half a month passed like this. By December, there was more news in town. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bha Xiaoye 11U. Chapter 124. Guangning Prefecture sent soldiers to suppress the small group of people who were making trouble in Fengting town, and they were soon suppressed. Fengting town soon became calm and was able to take a breath. The people who had fled in the town returned to their homes after hearing the news, and cleaned up the ruined houses and streets. Su Qingmei and others also returned to the town. The store was in a mess, the shelves had collapsed, and they were trampled into a mess. The backyard was also like a locust crossing, and there was nothing left that was worth money. The bedboards in the room and the casserole in the kitchen were taken away. Su Qingmei and others cleaned up for a few days before they could be considered to be in good shape. In addition to the store, the house was also broken into by someone climbing over the wall and was destroyed beyond recognition. Fortunately, she took away all the valuable things, so the loss was not big. But it cost a lot to repurchase shelves, kitchen, and bedding in the house. After dealing with the affairs in Fengting town, Su Qingmei went to the village in the suburbs of Pingchuan County again. In addition to the things in the cellar, a lot of things on the ground were also taken away. Fortunately, everyone in the village hid in the village and nothing happened. Su Qingmei met the servants one by one, compensated them for their losses, and gave them an extra month's salary to calm them down. After giving a few instructions to the head of the village, she returned to Fengting town. Fengting town was seriously injured, but fortunately the foundation was still there. All the merchants cleaned up a little and opened their businesses one after another. After all, they still have to live. But after this incident, the town was obviously less popular and the economy was depressed. However, the towns and villages under the town suffered almost no losses. There were fields and the production in the fields was still there. Fruits, vegetables, poultry, and eggs were also quickly harvested. Although the town was economically depressed, everyone still had to eat. The business in Su Qingmei's store did not change much. Although the daily turnover was slightly reduced, it did not have much impact. A lot of oil from Su Ergu's oil shop was robbed, and the oil press machine was broken. The family was busy sorting out the oil shop, so the vegetable shop was closed. All the residents in the town flocked to Su Qing's shop. Fortunately, after the tax station was removed, farmers from various towns and villages carried their loads to the town to sell vegetables and other things, so they didn't all crowd into Su Qing's shop. Su Shayan came and asked Su Qing's to increase production and help collect grain, cereals, and other things in the countryside. The north and the hinterland of the Central Plains were in great shortage of grain. After Su Ergu's vegetable shop was closed, Su's father called Su Saiquan to Su Qing's shop to help. Su Qing's father told them to collect more grain and transport it to the farm when they went to the countryside. With such a busy schedule, the first month of the year was approaching. News from various places kept coming back. General Wang, who led his troops to attack the capital Chang'an, forced the emperor away, and proclaimed himself emperor, naming the country Deqi. He conferred titles on all his generals. All his aunts and uncles were given official titles and given mansions. He was nearly 60 years old, and he also took in many concubines, and all his sons were made kings. He ordered the execution of ministers and noble families who were unwilling to submit, and blood flowed in the capital for a while. The emperor, who fled to Sichuan with his ministers and concubines, gathered troops from all directions and began to besiege the capital. However, the various military governors held their own troops, closed the door and waited, refusing to send troops. The emperor had no choice but to use Mukong, the leader of the Tuotu tribe who had been driven to Mobei by him, and ordered him to lead his troops to attack Wanghu. While sending troops to attack, he recruited troops again across the country. It was the third day of the first lunar month when Su Qingmei received the news of the second conscription. This year, Fengting town passed by a bit silently. There were almost no firecrackers. It was not that they had no money to buy them. People just didn't feel like celebrating the new year. The seat of the Golden Palace in the capital had changed. It was called Deqi. I didn't know whether they were subjects of the Deshuo dynasty or the Deqi kingdom. Should we still listen to the orders of the prefect and the county lord? Although the common people didn't care about politics, the emperor was far away and it didn't matter who was in power. As long as the common people were well fed, it would be fine. But no one could say whether the emperor had changed, whether it was good or bad. If he was worse than the last one, life would be unbearable. Everyone was waiting and watching. Lu Juyu's father was a county official with no rank or rank. He was appointed by the county to manage the affairs of Guanfengting town. Originally, everyone respected the Lu family and treated them as the masters when they saw them. When his family went out, everyone called them master, madam, young master. Now that the master was to be changed, no one knew whether Lu Xiaokai's family would be reused. There were also many people who went to his house every day to inquire about the situation. However, the capital was in chaos, and the so-called Great Qi only occupied the capital and several surrounding states. The emperor of Dashuo was still there, and everyone was watching and did not dare to act rashly. During this period, even the common people on the street were discussing political affairs. But no one dared to speak out. If the common people discussed the affairs of the court, they might be caught and locked up. This spring festival, Lu Shenkai's family did not return to Fengting town, but hid in Pingchuan County. Now Lu Bozu lives in Yu's family in Pingchuan County, Lu Yuzhu also married in Pingchuan County, and Lu Bozong also transferred to Pingchuan County to study. Wu was frightened by the turmoil in Fengting town and dared not return. Several children did not want to return, and Wu did not want to return to Fengting town. After the turmoil in Fengting town stopped, Lu Shenkai came back to clean up the house and the grocery store. Because it was near the end of the year, the grocery store was no longer open. He went back again before the new year to see Lu Xiaobao, and told Su Qingmei that the spring festival would be spent in Pingchuan County. He went back to Shanghe village to see the old couple of Lu, and then returned to Pingchuan County. Su Qingmei had lived in Xiahe village for more than half a month before, and met the people of the old Lu family in Shanghe village almost every day. Lu Xiaobao was still young, so she didn't go back to Shanghe village to celebrate the new year. She stayed in the town with Su Qingliu. On the third day of the Chinese New Year, Lu Juyu came to see Xiaobao. Seeing his pitiful expression, Su Qingliu also knew that he had a lot of things to do at home and outside the house during this period, so she comforted him with a few words. Lu Juyu brought her the news that he was going to recruit soldiers again. After the first month, the government decree will be issued to all townships and villages. This time it was a forced conscription. If there are more than 2 males in the family, one must be recruited. 3 dings signify 2 dings, and 4 dings signify 3 dings. Men over the age of 16 and under 50 are included in the list, and they are not replaced by money, carriages, and horses. Su Qingyu was stunned after hearing this. She had expected that there would be a conscription, but she thought that it would be the same as before. For ordinary families with no merit, 1 child per family would be enough. Will one of the 2 be born now? At least 3 men from the Su family will be taken away this time. I originally thought that the tax would be based on households, like last year, with 1 person per family. In that case, Su's father would not be able to get his turn. In addition to Lao Sudu, who did not meet the age requirement, the Su family also had 4 adults, Su's father, Su Erhe, Su Sanquan, and Su Sixi. All 4 brothers were listed. The 4th daughter chooses the 3rd daughter. Su Saiquan had just gotten married a few years ago and had no heirs yet. If the 4 of them wanted to take away 3 of them, if they took away all 3 of Wang's sons, she would kill someone. Su's father is 41 years old this year, which is the age of a mature man. The eldest son, Su Qingsong, was expelled for more than 3 years and his life and death were uncertain. The other son was not yet 8 years old. The 2 sons-in-law are also on the battlefield, one is dead and the other's life or death is unknown. Will he go too now? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhaya 11U. Chapter 125. On the day after the Lantern Festival, Sukingneo, Sukingliu, and others arrived at the store and found that not only Sue's father had come early in the morning, but Sue's mother had also followed. Xiao Qingxing and Xiao Qingyang rushed forward happily. The two little ones were sent to town early and didn't even spend the Lantern Festival at home. Why is Mom here? Dad, didn't I ask you to come back in 2 days? The store is not in a hurry, Suqing said. Something happened, Sue's father sighed. What happened? Something happened at home, Sister Suqingyu asked together. Mother Su took the two younger children and sighed, all your uncles have run away. Your grandma still doesn't want to tell us. It's because your father saw them go to her parents' house yesterday and didn't come back for so long. She didn't even come back for the Lantern Festival. I'm asking you, Master, your father just said that. Sue's father sat on a chair, holding his head in his hands, looking frustrated. Mother Su choked up as she spoke, why did your father treat your father like this? Isn't your father his son? He wanted to go out to avoid trouble, so he left your father alone without even saying a word to your father. They also told us that they accompanied your aunts back to their parents' home. Your father, why did he treat your father like this? Going out to avoid trouble? Seeing the surprised expressions on his children's faces, Sue's father rubbed his face and said, many families in the village have gone out to avoid trouble. As soon as they heard that there was going to be military conscription in February, most of them left. Almost all the men in the village left, leaving only there are some old people and children who can't walk. Where can they go? If they are caught, desertion will be a serious crime. Sukingliu was stunned. Everyone in the village says that they don't blame anyone. Even if they are caught, they will just be sent to the barracks, and the result will be the same. But what if you escape? Mother Su wiped away her tears and glanced at Father Su. The death of her son and son-in-law is uncertain. If her father goes again, her sky will collapse. There are so many people leaving the village. Didn't your parents notice before? Your mother and I were sent by your father to do this and that. Your uncles and aunts took the children back to their parents' home. All the family affairs fell on your mother and I, so we didn't pay attention. The village was deserted then in previous years, and I just thought that everyone was having a hard time this year, and I didn't think of anything else. Some people didn't see it, and we all thought they were running around outside. How could we know that everyone was hiding from the war? Sukinyu remained silent until she heard it. Then she asked, Dad, have you gone to the nearby villages to see if other villages are the same as ours? Sue's father nodded. Dad asked the village chief, and he said that many families nearby are like our village, with all the men hiding away. Where can I hide? Hide in the mountains. There are tall trees and dense forests in the mountains. You can hide as long as you can. If you are caught, you will have the same fate. You can live for a few more days. After Sue's mother finished speaking, she quickly grabbed Sukingyu's hand. Kingyu, do you think your father should go out and hide too? If your father is also beaten away, how will your mother survive? Your dad doesn't have any skills on his hands, so he will die if he goes to the battlefield. Sue's mother cried, which made Sukingneo feel uncomfortable. She looked up and saw one of the twins holding Sue's father's hand tightly, and the other hugging him tightly, as if he was about to go to the battlefield, and she felt quite uncomfortable. Dad, you and mother take a rest in the backyard, and I'll go out for a while. After Sukingyu finished speaking, she left the shop. As I hurriedly walked down the street of Fengting town, I was shocked to realize how deserted the town was. The Lantern Festival was just celebrated yesterday, and it should be bustling in the first month of the year. Unexpectedly, She walked all the way down the street and didn't see many people. On the 16th day of the first lunar month, there was only a cool breeze blowing on the street, which made people's faces hurt. Su Qingyu sat in the Lu family's concierge for a long time before Lu Juyu came back. This is her first time coming to Liu's house. After Lu Bachan left, Lu Juyu always took good care of her and often exchanged news with her, which was also good for Xiaobao. Su Qingnao was so grateful that she didn't disturb him for fear of causing trouble to him. After receiving the news of the conscription in the year, she didn't expect that before she could figure it out, all the men of suitable age in the family had fled, leaving Su's father alone. Come in quickly. I have no time to spare these days. I am running outside every day. Except for the first 2 days this year, my father has been away from home every day. The two of them sat in the Lu family's flower hall. Lu Juyu saw that Su Qingyu looked embarrassed and asked, "Are you doing this for military conscription?" Su Qingyu looked up at him and nodded, "Yes. When my parents came over this morning, I realized that many people in the village had gone out to avoid military service." Lu Juyu nodded, "I know. A well-informed person moved his family away a few years ago." "Move your family? Where can you go? The conscription is not limited to Guangning, right? Even if you escape to another place, won't you be arrested as long as you are a male?" Su Qingyu was a little confused. She has been thinking about this for years, how to let Su's father avoid this whipping. But she didn't think about running away. In this era when the world is nothing but the realm of kings, where can we escape? Flee to the mountains, flee to the south. Ah, Su Qingnao glanced at him in surprise. He was. Lu Juyu nodded, "If my father didn't have a good reputation in my family, and the only people of the right age who could be slapped with a dice, we would still have to leave." Seeing Su Qingyu looking at him blankly, he added, "Now the local military governors are in charge of power. After the capital changed, the military governors did not listen to orders. No one knows the last one who fled to Sichuan. Whether the counterattack can be successful or whether there will be anyone to carry out the decree issued by him is still unknown." Su Qingnao had even forgotten that there was Diqi. I heard him say again, "But now, there should be no one who wants to quarrel with him at this time. It seems that he still has to do something. My father and I both guess that there are many secrets and secrets. The south is far away from the hinterland of the Central Plains and has never participated in the court. If they are caught in the war, they can only serve as local soldiers. However, the governors in various places are conserving their strength and will not send out their soldiers easily. They still have to survive before they can do it." Something else. Lu Juyu spoke from the bottom of his heart. It was also because Su Qingyu was one of our own and tight-lipped. Su Qingyu nodded gratefully towards him. She really didn't expect this. The whole world belongs to that person, where can I escape to? Thousands of miles of territory are all under the imperial power, so where can we avoid it? Unexpectedly, the Dashuo dynasty has now reached the point where local military governors support their own troops and do not listen to the central government's orders. Do you know what vassal towns there are now? How are they divided? After Su Qingyu finished speaking, he saw Lu Juyu go out and bring out a map. Su Qingjao was not surprised at how their family could have such a thing. It's normal for people with rich background to hide things that ordinary people don't have. The two of them lay on the map and looked at the map for a long time. Lu Juyu pointed to the areas under the jurisdiction of each feudal town. He told Su Qingyu a lot about the character of each military governor, and told her everything he knew without hiding anything. Finally, he looked at Su Qingyu steadily. He said, "You have to go out early. No one knows what actions the county government will take now, and no one knows who they are. Whether they will stand still or set up strict barriers, no one knows. Dad used to be able to guess a little bit of the county prince's thoughts, but now he can't figure out his thoughts at all." Su Qingyu nodded. When Su Qingjao was about to leave, Lu Juyi stopped her again. If you go out, remember to send a message back to our family. We will not leave. By then, Bo Cheng has sent back some information, so I can pass it on to you. Good. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Ba Jiaoye 11U. Chapter 126. Su Qingyu came out of Liu's house and walked on the street of Fengting town. When the cold wind blew, she understood. She wants to hide out with her father. Her father is the backbone of their family. If her father has any shortcomings, not only will her mother's sky fall, but their family will also fall apart. When she returned to the store, she told her parents about her decision. Su's father probably hasn't come out of the shadow that Su Erhe and others hid from him yet, and he still doesn't understand why his father left him behind. Are you afraid that the whole family will be gone and no one will be able to do business? After hearing Su Qingyu's decision, Su's father was just stunned for a moment, then accepted it well. Yingwan saw his nephew Zhou Dejiang standing there with a confused expression. He thought for a while and said, "I'll go to your aunt's house." When Granny Zhou heard this, she hurriedly pushed her grandson-in-law, "Hurry up and go home with your uncle." Granny Zhou's family finally has a man who is the backbone of their family. But just a few days after her granddaughter's wedding, her grandson-in-law is going to fight on the battlefield? Aunt Zhou has been holding her daughter and crying all spring festival, and she still regrets accepting their marriage. Now 2 dice are drawn and 1 dice is drawn. Either Zhou's father or Zhou Dejian will go, and one of the Zhou family members will be expropriated. Father Su's legs were intact, so it was probably impossible for Zhou Dejiang to watch his father die. After Su Qingyu made her decision, she quickly went to Jixiang's shop and asked the shopkeeper to help send a message to Su Shaiyan. She wanted to see him. In the afternoon of the next day, Su Shaiyan came to Fengting town. 6. Su Qingyu asked him to buy the dried fruits and vegetables in the store and all the inventory in Zhuangzi, and also asked him to collect the grain stored in the 2 places. Su Shaiyan responded and looked at her, "Are you going to leave?" As he walked these days, there were already many people on the road with their families and families hiding from the war. Su Shaiyan glanced at her and said, "I can arrange for your father to come to my house. You can't get him from my Su family now." Su Qingyu thought for a while and shook her head. She looked at the map yesterday. The vassal towns are now divided. Huanghu occupies the capital and several surrounding states, and the north is now in dire straits. The emperor of the Dashuo dynasty fled to Shu again. Although Guangning Mansion was far away from the hinterland of the Central Plains, it was only separated by 1 state from Shu. When the time came, wars would become frequent and wars would inevitably be affected. She is taking her family to the south. She doesn't have much sense of belonging to Dashuo or Fengting town, and her hometown is where she feels at ease. Now that you have come here, you have to live well. Only communication is inconvenient in this era. I don't know how she and Lu Bachan will contact each other in the future. Fortunately, Lu Juyi said that his family would not move. In the future, if he is alive, he can always find it. Su Qingyu handed Zhuangzi's land deed to Su Shaiyan again. "You can take this back. It won't be convenient to manage it after I leave. The mountains are high and the roads are far away, and I don't know if I will have the chance to come back." Su Shaiyan glanced at her and saw that she had made up her mind, so he silently took back the land deed. "I'll break it into silver and give it to you. Do you still want gold?" Su Qingyu shook her head. "If possible, help me get some road signs." "Good." Su Qingnao returned to the store and told Granny Zhou and others about her decision. Everyone moved the things out of the cellar in silence so that Su Shaiyan's people could come and transport them away. Looking at the empty cellar and thinking of the efforts of the past 2 years, Su Qingyu couldn't help but have mixed feelings. Su Dehu stood behind her and suddenly said, "I'll go with you." Su Qingyu was stunned and turned to look at him. "I can go anywhere by myself." Home is wherever I go. Uncle Su and Aunt Su watched me grow up, just like my parents, and you guys are just like my brothers and sisters. Su's father was also on the side. After hearing these words, he came over and patted his shoulder with emotion. Okay, then come with us. We will be a family from now on. Sukingyu smiled and nodded at him. Then I'll go back to Kyoto village. Sudahua was very happy. Su's father thought for a while and said, don't tell the village yet. Good. When Su's mother heard what Su's father told Sudahua, she glanced at him and turned around to pack up. She was not without complaints about the decision of her parents-in-law at home. Within 2 days, Su Shayan sent the road guide and considerately sent small silver notes and gold and silver. Sukingneo thanked him solemnly and received another hand-drawn map from him. The day after receiving Lu Yin, Sukingyu took Xiaobao to Pingchuan County and met Lu Shenke. You want to leave? Lu Shenke was stunned while holding Xiaobao, and tightened his grip. Yes. Dad, you also know that my father will die if he goes to the battlefield. I don't feel comfortable letting him and my mother escape. Yes, but Xiaobao is still so young. Lu Shenke hugged Xiaobao tightly, and suddenly felt pain in his heart when he saw Xiaobao smiling at him with a grin on his face and grabbing his beard with his little hands. Xiaobao, I will take good care of him. He is still so young. Even adults can't bear the hardships he endured along the way. How can Xiaobao bear it? You leave him here, and Dad will take him. Lu Shenke held Xiaobao tightly in his arms and refused. Release. Xiaobao was hurt by his stranglehold, and he pursed his lips and stretched out his hand towards Sukingyu. It's Grandpa, Grandpa is holding you. Sukingyu comforted him. Xiaobao turned to look at Lu Shenke, staring at him with his big eyes. Lu Shenke couldn't bear to leave him, and was still asking Sukingyu to keep Lu Xiaobao. Seeing Sukingyu's insistence, she hugged Xiaobao and cried. Sukingyu felt uncomfortable. If possible, she wouldn't want to leave. At least wait until Xiaobao is a little older. Now he can only stand up straight while holding on to things, and he can't even move his feet. Dad, take this house deed. It is the pension money given to you by Bocheng and Xiaobao. Keep it. Lu Shenke refused. Dad, I don't want it. You are taking your children with you and the whole family has to eat and drink. You don't know what difficulties you will encounter. It's always good to have more money with you. Dad will help you sell it. Dad, take it. Last year I collected some grain from the countryside, and now I sell it at a high price. I still have some money with me. Seeing that she was unwilling to take it back, Lu Shenke had no choice but to take it. Where are you going? To the south. The specific where to go is still unknown. Wherever it is safe, just stay there. I will send a letter to Dad to report that he is safe. Okay. Dad will wait for you to come back and report that you are safe. Sukingyu went to see Old Man Xie again and told him that she wanted to cancel the lease. Old Man Xie was very reluctant to part with him and even gave Xiaobao a pendant as a souvenir. Xie also gave the twins a gift. When Sukingneo left, he also sent her to the carriage shop, where he shed tears in front of Sukingneo for the first time. Sukingyu felt very uncomfortable. She carried Xiaobao and returned to Fengting town. When she got home, she found that her aunt and her family were all here. Qinglao, your aunt and her family have decided to leave with us. Seeing her return, Su's mother hurriedly took Xiaobao and said. What about Dejiang? Dejian and Hongxia will also go with you. Me, your Aunt Zhou and Hongshan will not leave. You will take us back after you settle down in the south. If the south is not good, we can guard our home and wait for you come back. Grandma Zhou said. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhjiaoye 11U. Chapter 127. Before the first lunar month was over, Sukingyu left Fengting town with her family and her aunt and her family. Read. The night was deep and the cold wind was still blowing. Everyone covered their heads and faces and looked back from the ox cart. Fengting town disappeared from sight little by little. Everyone felt bad. Hongxiu's eyes were swollen from crying. She had family on one side and her new husband on the other. It was difficult for her to choose between them. When Su Qingyu saw her crying and falling into De Jiang's arms, she felt a little regretful about making this couple together. She thought that by marrying De Jiang, the whole family would have someone to rely on. As the only son in the family, De Jiang should not be sent to the army again. Unexpectedly, the upper age limit for conscription was raised from 40 to 50 this time. The two men in De Jiang's family must be drawn together. Su Qingliu saw her looking back, patted her, and comforted her. No one could have imagined that such a thing would happen. She married De Jiang, and De Jiang and her aunt were both good to her. It was better than marrying someone else. The people are much better. After hearing this, Mother Su hugged the twins and nodded. He glanced towards the front of the car and whispered, "Your father is feeling even worse. There is no one in Su Qingyu's family. Mother Su's natal family is gone. She is where her husband and children are. Although I have lived in Fengting town for most of my life, there is not much pain of separation." As for Su Qingliu, Yaya's father was gone, her parents-in-law were gone, and her husband's family was gone, so she followed her mother's family. Needless to say, Su Qingyu. Only Su's father has a deep affection for Fengting town. His eyes were swollen when he returned to the town from Kyoto village yesterday. After listening to Mother Su's words, the two sisters glanced in the direction of the car and stopped talking. The ox cart was swaying, and the twins were drowsy. They wondered for a while and fell asleep again. Yaya and Lu Xiaobao slept soundly in their mother's arms. Su's father, on the other hand, had not spoken a word since he started on the road. He drove the car outside with all his heart and soul without saying a word. Su Qingyu and others didn't bother him. He was probably feeling uncomfortable. At this time, a group of people drove 3 ox carts and walked on an unknown night road. There is an ox cart in Su Qingneo's shop, plus one for Su Dehuo. Su Qingneo bought another one a few days ago. There are 3 cars and 3 families. Su Dehuo is driving the cart with food and luggage, and the eldest uncle is driving one. My father drove 1 and 3 ox carts out of Fengting town and went directly to the south. A lighting lantern was hung on the front of the car, glowing brightly and dimly in the dark night, illuminating the uncertain road ahead. At daybreak, we saw cattle and carriages in 2s and 3s on the road. The bullock carts swayed and the horse-drawn carriages sped by. Su Qingyu looked at it with bright eyes. She also wanted a carriage that would be fast. The ox cart shook so hard that she wanted to get off and walk around twice to compare its speed with the old oxen. However, horses are difficult to purchase and the target is too big. A dusty bullock cart is better, ordinary and unobtrusive. Everyone had been riding in the bullock cart for several hours, and their legs were numb from sitting there, and the cows were also very tired. After the children woke up, they found a dense forest, drove the cows in, and everyone got off the car to rest. Father Su felt sorry for the cow. As soon as he got off the bus, he unloaded the carriage for the cow, fed it water, and then led it to find fresh fodder. By the time Su's father and others brought the cow back, everyone was already sitting on the ground. Su's mother, aunt, and others had also cooked hot food for everyone in clay pots. Everyone held their own bowls and chopsticks and simply ate. Su Qingyu fed Xiaobao and saw that he was very interested in going down to the ground to feel the temperature of the earth, so she asked Qingxin Qingyang to support him and play with him. My aunt's grandson, Jinhai, is 1 year younger than the twins. They were not familiar with each other at first, but now that they got together, they quickly became familiar with her. When Jinhai saw the twins taking Xiaobao with them, he held Yaya's hand in a sensible manner. The 4 children got together and started playing on the grass. Su King Nao occasionally cast a look or two, her heart full of sorrow. He immediately said that he would take everyone out to escape from the war. When he came out, he saw that there were actually 5 children in the group of 15 people. There are only 4 male laborers. 3 bullock carts had to be changed and the driver had no time to change them on the way. Later, Su's father would have to teach her, Su's mother, Su Kingliu and others how to drive the bullock carts. She turned to look at her little cousin Kixia. I was not familiar with her at first, but now I see that she is quick and takes good care of Jinhai. She also helped take care of Yaya just now. There is only a 2-year age difference between her and Aunt Hongxiu. Seeing them getting along now, it seems they should get along. He seems to be a sensible person. If someone in the team is ignorant, it will be a headache along the way. Aunt Su sighed when she saw Su King Nao looking at the children in a daze. Said, Qing Lao, although people are said to be cheap when they leave their hometown, don't worry. There are so many of us, we have hands and feet, and we are still hungry. I heard that there are many rivers and lakes in the south, there is no shortage of water, and there is a year of food. There will be a good harvest every year. When we get to the place, we will work hard to open up more land and cultivate the land for a few years. As long as people are alive, there will be a future. Can't survive. Su King Nao smiled at Aunt Su. There were so many people, old and young, and she didn't know if she could bring them safely to a better place than Fengting Town and give them a better life than Fengting Town. She was unsure. This era is one she has never experienced before, with countless unknowns. Mother Su glanced at her and knew her pressure, and said with a smile, that's right, there are so many of us, what are we afraid of? There are several big knives in the car. As long as people are alive, we can live our lives. Su's father, uncle, and others also said a lot to comfort her. He said that he could still be together as a family now. If he was still in Fengting Town and was taken to the barracks, his body might soon be gone. Nowadays, if you live a day, you will earn a day. Su Qingyu saw that none of them had much sadness about leaving home, so she gradually looked away. No matter what, let's live first. Only when you are alive will you have a future. After the cows had eaten and drank enough, everyone decided to continue on their way. Su King Nao asked Su's father, uncle, and Ahu to teach several girls how to drive a bullock cart, and everyone sat at the front of the cart to learn. Otherwise, it would be too tiring for just one person to drive the car. Su Qingyu sat next to Sudahu and learned from him how to drive a bullock cart. Cows have a gentle temper, but sometimes they can be very stubborn. Don't whip it too hard. The more you whip it, the less likely it will move. Pull the rope back, and it will stop. If you want it to turn left, just pull the rope, say Lily, and say Dada when turning to the right. The cow is very smart, it understands. Su Qingyu is very perceptive, and in just an hour, she can drive a bullock cart very well. I feel very happy. Seeing her smile, Sudahu also had a smile on his face. Said, Qing Lao, don't put so much pressure on me. Although there are old and young in our group, many children and women, I will protect you. I stay alone wherever I am, and I am with you. I am very happy and feel at home. If there are any difficulties along the way, we will solve them together. You don't have to bear it alone. You know that if your father and the others stay in Fengting Town, they will die. Now we have escaped. Every day you live is earned, isn't it? Su Qingyu looked at him, smiled with her lips pursed, and nodded. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bh Yaoye 11U. Chapter 128. Shuzhong, where the imperial court of Dashuo dynasty moved to. Read. When Lu Baqin heard that troops were to be organized to clear up Chang'an, he took the initiative to volunteer. Years ago, Lu Baqin suppressed the rebels in Yunzhou. In that battle, due to improper command of the supervisory army, most of his soldiers were lost. In the end, they broke out from the rebel encirclement with less than 1,000 troops. Finally, Kui Sheng brought the remaining soldiers and horses of the three captains back to Shizhong. The brothers, who used to laugh, curse, joke with each other, and talk dirty words together under Lu Baqin's eyes, overnight, could never come back. Lu Baqin didn't say a word for more than a month while he was recovering from his injuries. Everyone thought he had hurt his throat. He was still so cold that you would get frostbite within 1 meter of him. Kui Sheng was considerate of him and just let him rest in peace and recuperate, not letting complicated and trivial matters disturb him. Kui Sheng also secretly resented that his three captains sent a forward team of nearly 20,000 troops, but only half of them came back. 3 captains, 1 dead, 1 seriously injured and 1 slightly injured. His favorite, the invincible future god of war Lu Baqin, was carried back when he came back. He was covered in blood holes, and he thought he would not be able to survive. Fortunately, he survived in the end. Kui Sheng wanted to ask the emperor to investigate the supervisor's crimes. But unexpectedly, the emperor took refuge in Shu under the protection of the eunuch Lu Lingzi. He valued Lu Lingzi even more, and the eunuchs under him were frequently promoted, and they were all reused. Kui Sheng could only feel depressed in his heart. This time we will launch an encirclement and suppression campaign against Chang'an. In view of the disastrous defeat last time, no general dared to take the lead in the battle. Kui Sheng was also depressed and did not come forward. It wasn't until the emperor was furious that Kui Sheng came out, but the requirement was that he would not bring any supervisors with him. The emperor agreed without much hesitation. But Lu Lingzi, who was standing next to the emperor, looked at him deeply. After Kui Sheng returned to his account, Lu Baqin, who learned the news, volunteered to lead a team to Chang'an to suppress the rebels. Kui Sheng knew what he was feeling and agreed. Although there was no supervisory army, the emperor's last thought was to order Mukong, the leader of the Tuota tribe, to lead his troops with him and divide them into 2 groups as a safe strategy. Kui Sheng frowned, but Lu Baqin didn't care. He just wanted to avenge his previous humiliation and repay the shame of Yunzhou, where many brothers buried their bones in the previous battle. Kui Sheng said earnestly, "Bo Chang, I know you are eager to win this time, but you must not lose your sense of proportion. This time, the Fengxiang Army's military envoy and the Suanwu Army's military envoy said they would support us. I will not ask Jidushi for help again. In the last battle of Yunzhou, the entire army was almost wiped out. Lu Baqin asked for help from Hezhong Prefecture and Yanhai Junjidu respectively, but was cruelly rejected. Every time Lu Baqin thought about how he humbly went to ask for help from others and was rejected, and when he looked back and saw his brothers dying one by one in front of his eyes, no one could understand the pain in his heart and eyes. You still have to be strong enough that others have to take you seriously, so that your dignity will not be trampled on. Kui Sheng sighed deeply. On the battlefield, only surviving is the most important thing. Everything else is just a drop in the ocean and not worth mentioning. Even if you have to endure the humiliation, you have to endure it before life and death." Lu Baqin said nothing. After receiving the military order, he worked day and night on the school field to hone himself. He looked like a soulless god of murder. The man and the gun merged into one, which frightened Lu Changsheng, the soldier. Only Lu Baqin knew that he had to become stronger and stay alive. Only when he is alive can he have the chance to see his wife. On the other side, Su Qingyu and her family traveled for another 2 days, and everyone was in good condition along the way. None of the children had ever traveled far, and they chattered excitedly along the way. They often crowded into the same car, talking and playing around. "Sometimes I think the bullock cart is too slow," so I go down to the ground and chase and play around in the bullock cart. Xiaobao can't walk, he screams anxiously when he sees everyone laughing and laughing. Su's father picked him up and put him on the back of the cow. The child stopped. He clapped his little hands and swayed his little feet in excitement. He was so excited that he looked around to see if he was tired. He was not happy even when he was carried into the carriage. Children don't know what it's like to be sad. They are happiest when they are with their parents and family. The adults in the group were also infected by them, and the sadness buried in their hearts dissipated a little. The further south we go, the more people we see on the road with their wives and children, carrying luggage, pushing and pulling. Some even come in groups, and people from a large family or a village can often be seen. They are all people who came out to escape the war. Walking on the road, everyone will look at each other and size each other up. At this time, everyone is worried about something happening to them. But fortunately these 2 days have been relatively peaceful. Sukingyu and his party mostly went out at dawn and at night. When the sun was shining brightly, everyone took the less traveled path, found dense forests, and rested away from the crowds. When the sun sets, I rush out at night. We all come from farmers' families and are used to eating and sleeping in the open. The children were well taken care of by the adults. They had enough to eat and sleep, and they didn't feel uncomfortable at all. Sukingnao was originally worried about Xiaobao because he was too young and worried that something might happen to him. Unexpectedly, the child was still alive and kicking after 2 days, which made Sukingnao feel relieved. Because the ox cart moves slowly, the ride is not too bumpy. When your legs feel numb, you get off and walk around, and when you feel tired, you get on the cart. Now that women can also drive, Su's father and others get in the car to sleep when they are tired, and let women drive. It has been 2 days and everyone has adapted well. On this day, a group of people arrived at a small town. Sukingyu decided to take a rest in the town and make some supplies. After finding a tea shop, a group of people quickly filled the empty seats in the tea shop. The boss saw a large group of people coming and came to serve them very attentively. The guests in the tea house were all staring at them. Seeing that they were a group of men, women, old and young, they wondered if they were going to visit relatives. Yes, we are going to visit relatives in the south. Our family was hit by a locust plague and can't survive. And Su was quick and efficient. She pretended to be sad when answering the boss's question. The boss and the guests nodded in understanding. It's still better here, with good weather and good harvests. Dongting Lake hasn't flooded in the past 2 years. The locust plague in the north, tut, it's killing people. Didn't we have a locust plague 2 years ago? Why is it coming again this year? The north is really not a place for people to live. A few people sighed after hearing this, and someone else said, isn't it good? This year, my grain has sold for several times the price of previous years. If there was no disaster, would our grain be sold so expensively? Someone agreed, that's right. I heard that the northern grain merchants are here to collect grain again. Do you have any grain? I don't have much. I want to stock up the remaining ones. Maybe the grain price will rise again. I heard that it's not just the locust plague, but there will be another war in the north, a guest whispered. After being told this, everyone looked at them again. Could they be hiding from military service? Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bha 11U. Chapter 129. Su's mother and Su's father were heartbroken when they heard the words military service and did not dare to relax all the way. Aunt Su waved her hand nonchalantly, hey, which military service dodger can walk down the street in broad daylight like us? Well, it's too late to hide. The boss glanced at them and said with a smile, our local conscription order hasn't come down yet, and I can't even slap you foreigners on the head. Come on, drink tea in peace, and see if the guests want some snacks to go with it. Have some tea. If there is anything delicious and filling, please bring it, Sukingyu said to the boss. Okay, I'll be here soon, the boss responded and left. Sukingyu signaled everyone to drink tea and snacks in peace. Everyone understood her meaning and drank tea in peace. While eating, Aunt Su, Mother Su and others asked the guests about local crops and things happening in the crop fields. The guests also told some interesting stories about local people. Sukingyu also asked the boss about the recent situation in a vague way. As for whether she would be caught, Sukingyu felt relieved in a short period of time. First, it's been a long journey, and the military conscription hasn't started yet. Second, many people in power in various places are waiting and watching. It is said that there is one emperor and one courtier. Now they still don't know who is their emperor, and most of the government orders are followed and violated. Even if the soldiers are beaten according to the order, they may not be willing to lead the soldiers to the central plains. So Sukingyu wasn't too worried. But everything is unpredictable, so be careful. Therefore, she has decided to avoid large counties and state capitals, avoid them if possible, try not to take official roads, and go to small roads with fewer people. This also allowed her to find out something. It is said that in the first month of the year, Emperor Dashuo sent 2 armies to attack the capital Chang'an and defeat the Qi army. While Da Qichao was still celebrating the new year, he caught them off guard. In a hurry, Emperor Qi ordered his general Wu Yan to lead his troops into battle to prevent the rebel army from marching north. Wu Yan boasted of great military exploits, but when he saw that the troops were led by a fledgling Yuja captain and a foreign leader living in Mobei, he felt that they were not familiar with military affairs, so he paralyzed and underestimated the enemy. In the end, he was ambushed by the Shuo dynasty official army and was defeated. Returned, losing more than 20,000 people. Taking advantage of the victory, the official troops of the Shuo dynasty forced their way to Weibei, Shaiwan, Weiqiao, Wujiang and Yuxi near Chang'an, and gradually pushed into Chang'an. Zhuang, the commander of Xiasuijida who had surrendered to the Qi army, felt that he was outmatched and betrayed the Qi army at this moment. Seeing Zhuang's rebellion, Wu Yan fled to Dengzhou with his remaining troops. Sukingyu and others were frightened when they heard this. Then is Emperor Qi still in Chang'an? Who took Chang'an back? Su's father swallowed repeatedly and asked the boss and all the guests of the tea shop. This beating and killing is really scary. Who is the emperor again? Which dynasty are they subjects of? The boss quickly shushed and warned in a low voice, what Emperor Qi? That's the leader of the rebels. Do you want to? As he spoke, he made a beheading gesture on his neck. Father Su's neck shrank and he was so frightened that he didn't dare to speak. He shut his mouth tightly and looked around in panic. Ordinary people did not dare to discuss court affairs loudly, and even the guests in the tea house were silenced by the boss. Sukingyu couldn't find out more information even if she wanted to. Only then did she realize why people all over the world wanted to study and become officials. All major affairs in the world were in the hands of officials. If they didn't disclose it to the public, the people below would be like blind people, living their lives in vain. Therefore, in the 21st century, talents are the most important, and what is more important than talents is information. Information is the most important. Whoever has the first information will get the upper hand. Sukingyu turned her head silently and glanced, still drooling, glancing at her son who was reaching for the food plate on the table. It was unknown whether this little boy had any talent for reading. No matter what, I will send him to study when life becomes stable in the future. There is no such thing as enlightenment at the age of 6 or 7. When he can speak, teach him to hold a pen and read. The child Lu Viang, who had no idea that his life was going to be miserable, received the eyes from his mother and thought that her mother cared about him, so he smiled and reached out to his mother for a hug. Sukingyu turned her face away. Hug me all the way. Fortunately, if you want to sit by yourself, just sit by yourself and hug me. The group paid for tea and continued southward. The number of people going south gradually increased on the road. If they met any old or young people who could not walk, Sukingyu would let them come up and sit for a while. Since they were not people fleeing the famine, everyone was not particularly in poverty, and they all had food and drink with them. Therefore, Sukingyu and others did not encounter the common people who came to beg for food. There are quite a few people who take advantage of the car. If it seems that it is really difficult to walk, Sukingyu and others will also help, but there are all kinds of conditions on the road, and no one dares to take it lightly. After walking like this for several days, we arrived at Yuanzhou in Jiangxi. Because there are county governors and officers and soldiers in the county and state capitals, Sukingyu usually avoids them. And since everyone hadn't washed up for several days and the children looked wilted, she looked for a small town near Yuanzhou and entered a relatively clean inn before sunset to rest for the night. I didn't dare to eat in the hall, so I asked the waiter to deliver it to the guest room. The group of people had to eat hot food all at once. They all tasted very delicious and their plates were completely cleared. Then the waiter brought bath water, and everyone took turns to freshen up. After washing, I felt like my body had lost several pounds, and I felt like I was alive again. After the children had eaten and washed themselves, they all fell on the bed and fell asleep sweetly. Mother Su and Aunt Su couldn't bear it either, so they both slept with the children. Sukingliu, Hongxiu, Kixia, and others were washing everyone's clothes. Su's father and uncle were resting in the room, and Dahuadejiang went to the backyard to look at the luggage. Sukingyu wanted to go down and inquire about some information. I found a corner downstairs, ordered a pot of tea, and sat listening to the guests at the inn. When the waiter saw her drinking a pot of tea leisurely and listening intently, he immediately knew her intention. He flicked the handkerchief and immediately greeted him with a smile. Whatever the guest wants to know, as long as the boy knows it, he will tell you everything he knows. Sukingyu raised her eyebrows, took out a dime of silver and handed it to him. Tell me all the new things you know. As long as I am happy, I will reward you with some silver. Okay. The waiter was quite clever and immediately pulled up a chair to sit next to her and started talking vividly. He told some interesting things about the town and some gossip about rich people, but when he saw that Sukingyu didn't seem interested at all, he rolled his eyes. Then he said, "Guard, do you know why you didn't see anyone in the town today? Usually our inn is very busy at this time. It's dinner time. Usually I wish that one person could be 4 or 5 clones, but today I still have time to chat with the guests here." "Oh, why?" "Madam, she has a tender heart." Author, Bhaya 11U. Chapter 130. Seeing her interest, the waiter sat closer and whispered, "I wonder if the waiter has come from the state capital? Do you know the announcement issued by the state capital recently?" "What kind of notice?" Sukingyu didn't say whether she had passed through the state capital, she just asked what kind of notice it was. "Read. 2 announcements. One is that the imperial court is recruiting troops again. The other is that the pay will be collected soon." Sukingyu's heart skipped a beat and asked, "Suppression of wages?" "That's right. We just collected a bunch of inexplicable taxes last year." "How long has it been?" "Spring plowing hasn't even started yet, so why should we collect taxes? Maybe we think that ordinary people have gold and silver in their homes." The waiter also came from a poor family. If he hadn't come out to ask for this job, his family would not be able to put food on the table. I felt contempt in my heart, and it showed on my face. Sukingyu echoed a few words. As soon as the waiter saw that he had met his soulmate, he immediately took her and poured a lot of bitter water on her. "Sister, you said that when the Liao kingdom invaded before, the military pay was insufficient, so we had to collect Liao pay. This time we have to attack the rebels, and we have to collect pay. When the military budget is not enough to train troops, Do we have to collect a training pay? Sister, you don't know, my father said he doesn't want to farm anymore. After a year of hard work, the grain he grows is not enough to eat, and the money from selling the grain is not enough to pay various taxes. Sister, you still have to borrow money from the landlord. What's the use of planting this land? Sukingyu sighed. Yeah, what's the use? The hard-earned crops are not enough to feed the family, and they have to borrow money from outside to pay taxes. Sighing, he asked again, what will you do about the conscription? You can't stay in the inn anymore, right? Sukingyu glanced at him. At this age, he should be 16. Sukingyu was worried about him, but she didn't expect that the waiter didn't care. I'm so afraid of him. My father said that our village and the township have discussed it. If there is a police officer coming to the village to recruit soldiers, everyone will rush forward and kill the officer first. Anyway, he will die. He will be the same as the Qi army. Go ahead. There are so many of us, how many policemen are there in the county? We may not even have 200 soldiers, so we're really scared. Ah, can you still do this? Was this inspired by the rebels? Or are the people here in Yuanzhou so tough? The waiter laughed when he saw Sukingyu's dumbfounded look. Sister, don't be afraid. None of us are bad people. All the people want is to live. Last year, we collected a lot of random taxes from the people, and everyone has long been dissatisfied. Now that the notice has been posted, I've torn it off several times, and the guards are too lazy to stick it on again. Seeing that Sukingyu had not come back to her senses, she leaned over and whispered, Sister, I can see that your family also came out to escape the war, right? From years ago to now, I have seen a big family like yours. There are too many people hiding. Sukingyu glanced at him with an unclear look. He came over again and whispered, Sister, don't be afraid. For 2 taels of silver, I will sell you some information and tell you a solution. Seeing that he didn't look like a boaster, Sukingyu took out 2 taels of silver and gave it to him. The waiter took it with a smile and quickly hid it in his arms. Then he leaned over and whispered, Chang'an has been captured. I heard that the Emperor of Qi led the Qi army to escape Chang'an. And I heard that the man who fled to Shuzhong was already on his way back to Chang'an, but our boss did not take good care of him. I heard that the Shuo dynasty's army marched into Chang'an, looted people's houses, and the troops were in disarray. Our boss said that if the Qi army became violent, they would fight back at this time. The Shuo dynasty's army had no reinforcements. It's dangerous. Sukingyu had never experienced a war scene, so she could imagine the dire straits in Chang'an city at this time. The waiter added, our people in Yuanzhou have always been fierce. Anyway, everyone will not survive. I guess no one wants to implement the pay and conscription. At worst, they will fight to the death. But since ancient times, there are still many people who are afraid of officials. People are hiding out. Anyway, there are many mountains near Yuanzhou. Sister, if you are afraid, take your family to hide in the mountains and wait until the wind calms down before coming down. Thank you. After hearing what he said, Sukingyu thanked him sincerely. He turned around and went upstairs to discuss with Su's father and others. Lu Bachan, who was in Chang'an, the capital, forced back Wu Yan, the general of the Qi army. He then forced the emperor of Qi to withdraw from Chang'an, and the official troops of the Shuo dynasty entered Chang'an. But before Lu Bachan could breathe a sigh of relief, news came that Mukong's Tuota soldiers were disturbing the people. I heard that the soldiers below came to report that the people of Chang'an city were complaining and crying. He also said that it was not as good as the Qi army in Chang'an. When Lu Bachan heard this, he became furious and rushed out with a spear in hand. Kui Sheng was so stunned that he couldn't catch up. Mukong was in the commander's tent, looking at the trophies presented by the generals below and placing them on the table one by one to admire. Just as he was feeling proud, he saw Lu Bachan lift the curtain and rush in with a gun. "Captain Lu, what are you doing? Don't you understand the importance of dignity?" Mukong narrowed his eyes and said to him. After fighting side by side with Lu Bachan this time, Mukong admired him very much. He is young, brave in battle, not afraid of death, and has excellent skills. He is a real man. Given time, he will become a tiger general who cannot be offended. But admiration in my heart is one thing, but it doesn't mean I can watch you rush to my camp with a gun. Although after this battle, you, Lu Bachan, have been promoted to the 6th rank of captain, I am already the governor of Hedong. If I hadn't brought 50,000 troops to help you this time, you would have been captured by Chi's army. Seeing the other party looking at him coldly, Lu Bachan realized that he was reckless, threw away his spear, and knelt down. Holding fists, "I've offended Mr. Mu. In the end, the general will hear someone disturbing the people and come to inquire. This battle is not easy for us. It is the time to regain the people's hearts. Please ask Mr. Mu to restrain his men to prevent the enemy from repeating themselves in vain." The blood of the brothers was shed on the battlefield. Mukong disagreed after hearing this. Since ancient times, warriors have been fighting to the death to become kings and lose to bandits. If they are not allowed to taste the sweetness, who will do their best to fight the enemy? Talking about restraining his subordinates and not disturbing the people is all nonsense. Today in Chang'an City, the person surnamed Wang is the emperor, and the people will listen to the person surnamed Wang. Tomorrow, the person surnamed Li will be the emperor, and the people will listen to the person surnamed Li. It is your own soldiers who listen to you the most. Lu Bachan knelt on one knee and secretly gritted his teeth before Mukong could say a word. Just as he was about to say more, Kui Sheng hurriedly opened the curtain and came in. As soon as he came in, he apologized, "Please forgive me, Mr. Mu. He is young and ignorant, so please forgive him for his disrespect. He is also worried about the people. Please allow me to take him back to punish him." Mukong glanced at Kui Sheng and was willing to give him face. Then he raised his eyelids and waved for them to go down. Kui Sheng walked in front without saying a word, while Lu Bachan followed him with a depressed look on his face. Neither of them spoke. It wasn't until they arrived in Kui Sheng's tent that Lu Bachan knelt down on one knee and confessed. Kui Sheng hated that iron cannot become steel. Your time in the army is not short, and you must learn to see the situation clearly. I told you, don't do things like hitting an egg with a stone. Don't rely on your own courage, follow your own come on. You don't want to take orders from others. Only when you stand in a high position can you give orders and don't have to endure these injustices. Lu Bachan gritted his teeth, clenched his fists, and knelt on the ground without saying a word. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhaya 11U. Chapter 131. Wang Hu led the Qi army to retreat to Bashang, east of Chang'an. After hearing the secret report, the Shuo army in Chang'an was in chaos, and the two armies of Kui and Mu had a grudge against each other. The main forces went to meet the Shuo emperor who returned to the capital, so they decided to return to attack the city. The Shuo army was caught off guard and defeated. The two armies of Kui and Mu had to withdraw from Chang'an and take refuge in Xinping. Because they were defeated, Wang Piyu, the governor of Tongzhou, Qiao Qian, the governor of Huazhu, and Song Yan, the governor of Shangzhou, switched to the Qi army. The Shuo emperor was full of expectations. When he returned to the capital Chang'an, he would reorganize the country and recover the lost territory. He was heading to Chang'an with a group of concubines and ministers. Unexpectedly, he heard the news that the capital Chang'an was recaptured by the Qi army on the way. The Shuo emperor was furious. He dispatched troops and ordered all the armies to attack Chang'an. The Qi army was short of food, so they sent troops to Hezhong prefecture to collect food and money. Wang Chongrong, the governor of Hezhong prefecture, was defeated and took the initiative to offer more than 40 ships of food and money. The Qi army then defeated Gao Suan, the governor of Zheyi, and took advantage of the victory to recover Fuping, Baining, and Xiashui. The north and the hinterland of the central plains fell into chaos again. On the other side, Su Qingmei had been hiding in the mountains with her family for nearly half a month. There are many mountains in Yuanzhou. That day, Su Qingmei listened to the words of the waiter and went back to the room to discuss with Su's father and others. Everyone decided to hide in the mountains for a while. So the next day, as soon as she left the inn, Su Qingmei took her family to hide in the mountains. The mountains are high and the forests are dense. It is said that there are no large beasts. Otherwise, Su Qingmei would never feel at ease to take her family into the mountains. Several children couldn't move their feet in the forest, but they were just filling the stomachs of the beasts. Only after entering the mountains did she realize that there were many ordinary people like her. Everyone brought their families, pots and pans, beds and beddings, and packed them neatly, and pulled, dragged, carried them up the mountain. Su Qing'an unloaded the carriages and dismantled the cartboards, and she also carried and lifted them on her back. After dozens of trips, she finally disassembled and lifted the 3 ox carts up the mountain. Everyone dug a hole together, filled it with wooden stakes, set up a tent, and then put up the cartboards, which became a simple residence for more than a dozen people. Fortunately, when Su Qing'an came out, she had packed everything up, including pots, pans, and bowls. Considering that there were old and young people, she prepared a lot of food and other things. She made dried vegetables herself and brought a lot, throw them into the pot, and there is no shortage of vegetables. There are also mushrooms and wild vegetables in the mountains, so there is no shortage of vegetables. But maybe the nutrition is still not up to par, and she gradually has no milk to feed Xiaobao. Xiaobao cried twice, and then slowly accepted this reality. The child was curious and excited. In the forest, there were uncles, aunts, brothers, and sisters to play with him every day, so he forgot to cry. With the help of his uncle, aunt, brother, and sister, he gradually learned to walk, and could stagger a few steps by himself. The adults were very surprised and coaxed him to walk every day. The more he was coaxed and praised, the more excited he became. Every day, he grinned and insisted on walking on the ground. His brothers and sisters helped him, but he was still unwilling. He clapped his hands and cried, insisting on walking by himself. He didn't cry even after falling. He clapped his hands, stuck out his butt and supported himself with his hands, and got up and walked again. Su's father and others said he was a smart man. Su's mother, Sudagyu, and others taught him to speak every day. But I don't know if this child is lazy or stupid. Now he can't even call his mother, and Su Qing'an rolled her eyes. The days in the mountains were idle and boring, and everyone gradually learned to find things to do. Several women went together to find wild vegetables and mushrooms, while the men went hunting with homemade weapons, saying that the children were greedy for meat, and they got something 2 out of 3 times. If they met someone from another family on the way, they would just nod and walk away. There were people not far apart in the mountains. The basin in the mountains was not big, so everyone occupied it, but they were not close to each other. Everyone kept their distance, but did not want to be too far away. They guarded and depended on each other from far and near. They knew that everyone had the same fate, but they were wary of each other. After half a month in the mountains, the food they brought was gradually eaten up. Sudahu and Su's father said they wanted to go to the nearby town to buy some food. It was too troublesome to disassemble and assemble the ox cart, and the cartboards were all made into bed boards. My uncle and De Zhang and his son said they wanted to go together. 4 men could at least carry back enough food for the family for 10 days and a half months. Suqingyan and others told them to be careful and watched them go down the mountain. It was not until the afternoon that Su's father and others came back, so Suqingyan planned to go down the mountain to see the situation. Unexpectedly, when she got halfway down the mountain, she saw a team of soldiers rushing up the mountain and pointed their spears at her. Suqingyan originally wanted to negotiate and buy some time for Su's mother and others to hide. Unexpectedly, when she turned her head, she saw that another team of soldiers had already escorted Su's mother and many people from the mountain basin down the mountain. Suqingyan saw Lu Xiaobao crying loudly, and went forward to pick him up and hug him. When he stopped crying, she was relieved to see that the family was still safe and staying together. After going down the mountain, she saw Su's father and other 4 people in the crowd. Su's mother, Hongxiu, and others all cried and rushed to them. Seeing that they were all safe, they cried and laughed and felt relieved. Su's father said that he was arrested as soon as he entered the town, and he was said to be sent to Yuanzhou Prefecture to replenish the troops. Then just arrest the men, why arrest our women and children? Su Degyu held her uncle and Zhou Dejiang tightly. Su's father shook his head, how could they know why? Suqingyan looked at a leader-like man in front of him, thought about it, handed Xiaobao to Su Qingliu, and walked towards him. Qingyan. Su's mother wanted to hold her back anxiously. Seeing that some officers and soldiers were looking at them, Su's father hurriedly held Su's mother back, and the two looked at Suqingyan anxiously. Sir, can you please have a word with me? Suqingyan walked up to the officer leading the team and whispered. The man turned his head and glanced at her. Not knowing what he was thinking, he led Suqingyu to a place away from others. Suqingyu saw that his face was quite honest and did not look like a treacherous person, so she said, Sir, we were brought down from the mountain. In such a hurry, we didn't even have time to pack up our things. You see, my son has just grown up. He is 1 year old, and there are some things prepared for him on the mountain. Do you think we are allowed to go up to the mountain to clean them up? Seeing that the man frowned, he hurriedly added, Our family still has 3 cows and 3 carts on the mountain. I think you also have some food and luggage to transport. If you don't mind, you can use my ox cart to pull it. Let's go, and it will save the strength of the soldiers. We still have to hurry, and we can't make the soldiers work too hard. The man raised his eyebrows after hearing this. Seeing that the man was loose, Suqingyu quickly said, My child's father has never seen his father since he was drafted and left home 2 years ago. I don't know what his father looks like or whether he is alive or dead. Many uncles and brothers in my husband's family died on the battlefield. If the only root of their family also died on the road, how could I be worthy of my husband's family? Seeing Suqingyu looking on the verge of tears, the man thought for a moment and said, Where is your family? I'll go with you. Thank you, sir. Suqingyu hurriedly returned to the team, grabbed Su's father and others, turned around and went up the mountain. The master personally led a few men to follow them. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhaya 11U. Chapter 132. The meal was ready quickly. After the reading is done, the leading soldiers will distribute it together. In the end, the women were given a bowl of multi-grain porridge, and the children were given half a bowl. The men had to carry armaments and were on duty at night, so they had enough multi-grain porridge. Suqingneo, Suqingliu, and others looked at each other in confusion as they looked at the multi-grain porridge in their bowls, but the children were a little unable to eat it. When Suqingyu and her party set out, they brought a lot of fine grains and money with them. Along the way, the children ate fine grains. She also brought dried fruits and vegetables, so the children's food was not bad. Especially for Lu Xiaobao, after Suqingyu ran out of milk to feed him, Su's mother tried her best to make him delicious food. Occasionally you can catch prey in the mountains, and you can also eat meat porridge and broth. Now there was a bowl of something dark and indistinguishable. Lu Xiaobao was holding the edge of the bowl with his hand in anticipation, but when he saw it, he immediately looked away. Su Qingyu even coaxed and lied, but only allowed him to take 2 bites and then refused to eat any more. Seeing Su Qingnao's anxiety, Su's mother hurriedly held Xiaobao in her arms. He's still young, what can you tell him? We avoid people at night and make some paste for Xiaobao. Holding Xiaobao and coaxing him. Qingyang Qingxing and others stopped coaxing him and asked them to eat all the multi-grain porridge in their bowls with a straight face. Su Qingnao felt a little uncomfortable when she saw Yaya also eating the grain porridge in small bites. Their family used to be fine, eating, drinking, and happy. What's going on now? After dinner, Su's father, Su Dehua, and the other 4 returned to their place. Because their family members were with the army, except for those on duty, the other men who were not on duty returned to their families. When Su's father and others came back, they first looked at a few children, teased them a few words, and then the family got together to talk. There were many people in the team who were accompanying the army with their families. After everyone had a good meal, they each found a place for their family members, not far or near from everyone, and pulled tarpaulins to pitch their tents. There weren't many families with Su Qingyu's complete equipment. Most of the others lay down on the floor, next to the fire, with their clothes thrown over their heads and fell asleep. This non-stop walking makes everyone feel as if their legs are filled with lead and cannot be lifted. As soon as they finished eating, most of them fell to the ground. As soon as Su's father and others came back, Su's mother hurriedly twisted the hot handkerchief and asked them to apply it on their feet. She was secretly glad that all their pots and pans were still there. In the past, everyone would ride in an ox cart, and then get off for a walk after feeling numb. The ox cart moved slowly, and could only cover about 80 miles in a day. Now, I heard that people had to get up before dawn. Like today, the car didn't stop until sunset. We have to walk 60 miles a day. Su's mother's eyes were sore and swollen, and Su's father was old and worried that he wouldn't be able to bear it. Su's father comforted her, "It's okay. We farmers have never endured any hardships. It's just that we have to walk a little longer, so there's nothing we can't bear. We are fine, but you haven't seen anyone in the team who is older than us. There are many who are weaker than us." Seeing Su's mother squeezing Su's father's calf muscles, Lu Xiaobao also lay down and started stroking and squeezing Su's father. This made Su's father amused, and she held him in her arms and kissed him for a long time. "Our little baby is awesome. He doesn't cry or fuss. He is really a good grandson of our grandpa." Su Qingnao glanced at her son who was playing with Su's father and felt puzzled. This kid seems to be adjusting really well. I have never seen him howl during this journey. That time he howled so loudly that it was just because Su Qingyu had no milk to feed him. But he just howled a few times, and when he saw that there was really no food left, he stopped. This journey was bumpy, but I didn't cry or make trouble. Today's meal was not to his liking, so he just turned his face away without crying. Su Qingyu was concerned, fearing that his howling would annoy the soldiers, so she ordered him to be thrown away. Now that I see him being obedient, I feel relieved. Su Dehua took Su Qingyu's handkerchief, pressed it on his sore neck, and whispered, "I asked, our team will go to Fuzhou to join the main force, and then continue south to Fujian." Zhou Dejiang also came over and whispered, "Yes. This is also the case after I inquired about it. There are only a few hundred of us, what can we do? I said from the beginning that there must be a bigger leader leading it." Uncle Joe also whispered, "I heard that Huang Shenzi's family used to be a pig butcher in the countryside. His 3 brothers were all pig butchers. He is the youngest. He is 22 years old this year and has not yet been married. His father, mother, and both my brothers' families are in the team." When the aunt heard this, she hurriedly told the news she had learned. "Huang Shenzi is handsome, and many people in the team want to marry his old mother. If they can get there, the family will be happy and prosperous. Didn't you see that the ox carts the Huang family rides in have carriages, so they don't have to do any work, and many people are jealous. Su Qingyu stretched her neck and looked ahead. She didn't see their family and lowered her head. He whispered, "There are many old friends of Huang Shenzi in this team. I heard that the three brothers of Huang Shenzi defected to his brother. His brother's name is Huang Su. I heard that he is the descendant of a general named Huang in Lanja. Huang Suyuan was guarding the border in the northwest. He was embarrassed by the military officials and killed them in a fit of rage. Then he escaped with a team of less than 100 people and collected some victims one after another along the way, including Huang. People like Shen Ji came to vote, and I heard that the team now has 5,000 people." Sudahu and others all looked at Su Qingyu and admired her very much. Such news was heard by her. "There is a woman and her man following Huang Su," Su Qingyu said hurriedly. "Oh. So everyone only inquired about some gossip, but you suddenly found out about the core of the team. Father, uncle, Dahuo and Dajiang, please don't act rashly. Let's wait and see. There are many people in the army, and they probably won't do anything risky. Let's follow them south first and see what they do. Intention, then make plans." Father Su nodded repeatedly. "I originally thought that by being cautious, the family could safely go south and avoid the chaos of war. Unexpectedly, I was arrested when I went down the mountain to buy some food. If I had known I would be caught, I might as well have stayed on the mountain and dug wild vegetables to eat. It's spring now, and there are a lot of wild vegetables popping up." Su's father was so heartbroken that he was planning to escape. "Fortunately, I heard that women and children could join the army and the family could still be together." I breathed a sigh of relief. After everyone coaxed a few children to sleep, Su Qingyu and others talked for a while before falling asleep. Before going to bed, Mother Su secretly made some rice cereal and fed it to Xiaobao. Xiaobao was probably hungry, so he ate the entire bowl of rice cereal with his eyes closed. Mother Su breathed a sigh of relief. At night, there were many fires lit in the camp, and it didn't feel cold, but the mosquitoes were annoying. Fortunately, their home was better than other homes because it was surrounded by a tarpaulin. In the second half of the night, Su Qingyu hugged Xiaobao tightly in her arms and fell asleep.